Well, you're watching 7 for 12 with Steve Harmison. Every day following play during the English summer, this is the place to be on YouTube for analysis, opinion, debate, and a couple of laughs along the way, hopefully. But thanks for joining us on the show. We're going to be answering all of your questions and reflecting on day 4 at Edgbaston as New Zealand steamrolled England. You're watching 7 for 12. Well, the day went as expected, really. England lost their last wicket to the first ball of the day to elicit groans, a few cheers and laughter, in fairness. It was a bit of a sobering moment. New Zealand then came out, knocked off the runs and, lost a couple of wickets along the way. But it was stand-in skipper Tom Latham who hit the winning runs, meaning England lose under Joe Root's captaincy for the first time ever. A series, that is. He has lost individual games, so that's a big moment for the skipper and also for England. Alongside me, after that humbling, really, Steve Harmison. First question, mate: have you calmed down at all since yesterday?
Not really, no, not really. Good to see the bowlers come out and show. Even though it was 35 runs, it means something. The game means something. Playing for your country, wickets to take. And I thought, again, the bowlers showed what they're made of. I think that was maybe the case in point of showing we're going to go right till the very end. Calm down, no. A little bit more irate when I hear the comments afterwards saying it's a learning, we must do better. I'm hearing these comments all the time. And I think a lot of people now are getting a bit sick of it. How much more learning do you want to do? Talking about playing against this a good New Zealand side, talking about what players have got missing. The problem England have got is they're not scoring enough runs. The top order's not firing. But if you ask me at the start of this summer, say 4 weeks ago, at the end of sort of county cricket when the squads were getting announced, what do you think your lineup will be for the first test match against New Zealand? What do you think your lineup will be for the first test match against India and Australia away? I would have said Burns, Sibley, Crawley, Root, Stokes, Pope. There's only Stokes missing, but the same mistakes are getting made time after time after time. It's either somebody's not listening, somebody's not learning, or probably not good enough because we seem to. And if we think it's going to get easier, you've got Ishant Sharma, Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Shami waiting for 4 weeks, 5 weeks' time when you finish playing 100-ball competition. And then you got to get on a plane and go to Brisbane. Face Hazelwood, Cummins, Pattinson, Stark. Doesn't get any easier. So if you think you're gonna have to learn pretty quickly. Soul searching to be done, and questions to be answered. More from inside than outside. There's a lot of blame with different things and a lot of people talking media outlets. Too many coaches, too many this, too many that, too many. That's a crutch. Look within yourself. Look at your game from a professional point of view. You are playing for England. Go away and find a way of coming back a lot better than what you are. And that's what I'd be saying if I was Joe Root and Chris Silverwood now. You can blame coaches. You can blame dietitians. You can blame, we've got far too many people. You can blame county cricket. You can blame whatever you want. You put 3 lines on your shirt. You go out. You're being picked because we think you're good enough. You go and find a way of coming back and telling people why you're good enough. Because at this minute in time, it's not working, and they're not getting any better.
Well, look, we will reflect on the second test match of the series against New Zealand. We will look at a little bit about where it went wrong, and also coming up in the show, we've got a Q&A section as well. Some of the questions that you've put to Harmy over the last couple of days on 7 for 12, I'm going to be putting them to him on the show. You're very much part of this, but let's hear what Harmy's got to say in 7 for 12. Okay, you know by now, Harmy. 7 minutes, 12 seconds. We went over yesterday, and understandably so, but today we're going to keep to it. You talk about learning, right? Or rather, Joe Root has spoke about learning. As an England player yourself, how long did it take you? How long did it take teammates? How long did it take batsmen to learn? Because surely the learning, and of course there is a learning process. You don't overnight become an international batsman or bowler, or very few people do. But you would have been in the dressing room And you would have seen players that if they just get a bit of experience under their belt, they think about what they're doing, correct us a couple of little deficiencies in the game, they'll go on and have a successful Test career. But I bet you would have looked at players that lined up alongside you for the national anthem, and you knew heart in heart they weren't going to make it.
Yeah, there are one or two, but during my time, there were a lot of players coming in who were picked on the ability and volume of runs that they've scored in county cricket and accumulated. I'll go back and question some of the selections that England have had. Nothing against Jason Roy. We got picked off playing one-day cricket. This Josh Buttler, he picked left field from one-day cricket. This is the problem we've got in this country. You've got to be able to bat for a long period of time, concentrate for a long period of time, and be able to rack up the volume of runs. I spoke to Mark Wood about this on numerous occasions. The only way you can learn how to get 5 wickets and knock tails over is actually by doing it. Go and play for Durham, knock a couple over at the start, and when you get a team 5-6 down, just tell the captain, I'm going to bowl till the game's finished, and I'm going to rough somebody up. I'm going to make somebody not fancy being out here because I bowl 90 miles an hour. You get used to putting balls in areas where they're going to put balls in areas where you're going to hit stumps, and things like that. It only comes with learning. Talk about Rory Burns at the start of this Test match. He come in with some fantastic numbers for Surrey. Not world-beating numbers, but some good numbers. What I'd expect him to do. Same with Stuart Broad. No coincidence. I think Stuart Broad's bowling the best he's bowled for quite a while, and that's saying something because he's been bowling very well in the last few years. He's been pumping without, the bag of 6 and 7 wickets. I actually think he's bowling very, very well. But what you've got is, though, John, is when you come into the dressing room as a young player, it's who you're coming in with and what you're coming, and what you're being around. And for me, there's been a lot of chopping and changing with the Red Bull team. Yeah. There's good players going out. Now, I mentioned over the last 2 days, I spent a great deal of time with Ian Bell, Jonathan Trott in this last week. We talked about, the Q&As we're doing, they talked about how difficult it was for Ian Bell in 2005. We had, as a teammate, you're not bothered if Belly doesn't score runs. We knew this kid was going to be the future, like Ollie Pope.
Yeah.
Michael Vaughan, Andrew Strauss, Marcus Trescothick, Kevin Peterson. I know he was coming in. Andrew Flintoff. The pressure's on them. I don't think England have got that. Not the top players, established players, who aren't looking over their shoulders for the players. Know their games inside out. Not much moving parts. Understand the game. Understand who they're playing against. Can bat for long periods of time and get scores on the board. And the young player that comes in will just knock an older player off. And that's what Ian Bell did to Graham Thorpe. And that's what Kevin Peterson did to the like, and Rob Key did to Mark Butcher and Nasser Hussain. But they come into settled and with great players, with good players. I don't see that. I don't see that with England. And I'll go back to what I said on day 2. Sibley and Burns batted to lunch. Didn't lose a wicket for the first session. First time since 2011. Cook and Strauss. I think if you ask Sir Alistair Cook, who was the biggest influence when he walked in that dressing room in his career, going forward and making him an international player that he was, I can guarantee you'll see Sir Andrew Strauss. The bloke he goes out to bat with. The bloke he feels confident in being around. And all the other components that were going in. At this moment in time, you've got Joe Root, who just looks like a lost soul at this minute in time, with so much pressure on his shoulders with what's coming and what's happening. Not playing in the IPL, he's got to put his country first because he's England captain, and rightly so. But I looked at a man yesterday that looked very, very broken, very, very disappointed when wickets were falling around him. Then when he got out, it took a while to get Joe off there, and I really, really feel sorry for the kids. So for me, it's about the system that you're creating and the environment that you're creating. And if you're constantly going through 20 players a summer, 25 players a winter, because you're giving rest to players for prioritising white ball, not going to get any better. You're going to be 1 step forward and possibly 2 or 3 steps back. That's where this England Red Bull team's going.
One of the questions in the post-match presser to Joe Root was whether we're being honest about helping the England captain and helping the England cricket team when you consider that the Red Bull game is being pushed to the margins of the summer. We've already had 8 games and it's only just the start of June. We'll have a couple of games or 1 game at the start of July, and then it'll be back in September. You don't breed good technique, do you? You don't breed batsmanship. You don't breed spinners. You breed bowlers, and England have got the bowlers. But until that changes, will anything change for England?
No, you say that, and I would agree with that thought before the summer started. But Neil Manthorpe, who we do the Cricket Collective with and talkSPORT, me and him have talked for the last 8 weeks, and the pitches seem to have been great. The first 6 weeks of the season, there was no rain whatsoever. Teams are getting 350, 400. There's two or three teams. Northampton changed 375. Leicester changed 375. There's runs on the board. This mindset and voodoo of England nipping around a bit early season didn't happen so much this summer. It happened actually about after 5 or 6 games when we had a little bit of rain. But if you look at the players that have gone out there, I've got the leading run scorers in here, and the top 20 leading run scorers in the country so far, Sibley, Crawley and Root aren't in them because Root didn't play as much for Yorkshire. Crawley hadn't got a volume of runs he would like. Sibley's been injured. But Pope's in there. He's got 550 first-class runs at 61. Burns, 554 runs at 61. Lawrence, 495 runs at 50. Bracey, the same, 479 runs at 50. These are our best players. These are the ones we send to Australia and play against India. But unfortunately, something's happening at this minute in time, whether it's either not good enough or the environment that's being set is one of it's just not working.
Well, we've reached the end of our 7 minutes and 12 seconds allotted time. We're not going to be doing Laugh Out Loud moment of the day because there was only 58 minutes of cricket. And we're not going to be doing any Harmy's tips because, there was only 58 minutes of cricket. But what we are going to do is answer some of the questions that the 7 for 12 viewers have commented on and posed to us. And that's coming next. Well, we've had quite a few questions through to the YouTube channel, 7 for 12. We will answer all of them, okay? Well, until there becomes millions, and then we'll just have to select the best ones. So we're answering all of them, and these are the best ones. And we're going to start with AJ Shetty. And AJ asks, Harmy, is English batting a reflection of county circuit talent, focusing too much on T20, that is, or is this just a one-off and that England will come good against India?
Well, AJ, I would love to think it was a one-off. My heart wants to say England will come good against India, but my head, as a former professional cricketer and player at the top level, thinks that this can's been kicked down the road far too many times for England and making the same mistakes and players getting out the same way. And possibly county cricket has been pushed to one side in the 4-day circuit to get the 2020s because it earns. Not only does it earn the money, the cash that makes the world go round and the cricket go round and get better facilities for all these clubs and to go with it, but it also tried to get in a position for England to win the 2019 World Cup. Didn't have a problem with that. I thought that was a good bit of planning by Sir Andrew Strauss and Owen Morgan. But I thought when that was won, it should have been focused on the red ball game leading into 2 massive series. And I'm not even including this one. I'm including the India one at home and the Australia one away. And for me, that's been left behind. And that is something that come at the end of the Ashes, when there'll be this huge debrief of what's happening with English cricket, I think there might be hopefully a refocus and a reshift to try and balance the books. Because at this minute in time, you're right, white ball is the focus with the 100 round the corner. And unfortunately, Joe Root's the man that's going to stand there in press conferences and have to churn out either an excuse, or a negative line and sit with his head in his hands. It's just not fair on the boy.
Okay, well, Jane at Timon says, Steve, surely they need to get Milan back at 3. Now, Milan has been tearing it up for Yorkshire. He moved from Middlesex last season, been scoring a bucket load of runs. He actually had a decent record for England. It's got some experience and, of course, has played relatively successfully on those hard pitches, which England will be playing at the end of the year. But what do you think? Do you think that's a backward step? Do you see that as even an answer? Or is it just another Johnny Bairstow one? Whenever there's a problem, call for Johnny, and then he's the first one out when things go wrong.
Yeah, Jane, I'm afraid I think some people's face just don't fit in this system, and can't sugarcoat it anymore. I'll be as brutally as honest as I possibly can. It just seems the likes of Johnny Bairstow, Moen Ali's been messed around, Chris Wokes messed around, even though I had a little bit of a dig at him yesterday, living 10 mile away when Trent Bolt flew 10,000 miles to play in a game and demanded to play. But the point you make is a valid one, and I'll elaborate on that point, Jane. I think in this country, we pick players between 19 and 22, 19 and 23, or a little bit older than that. We see them as the next superstars of Ian Bell, Joe Root, Sir Alistair Cook. And then once they get to 23, 24, and they've had a little bit of an indifferent start, or they've had a couple of failings, we discard them and never see them again. Now, Milan is somebody, I really enjoyed what Milan did. He got out the big city, went up to Yorkshire, big county, and said, right, I'm going to set up roots here. I'm going to go and play for a big county and score some runs. That's what he's done. I don't see too many players, and I've got names down here, the likes of Sam Robson, Adam Lyth, who started quite well. Wesley was a little bit older, and so was Stoneman. Borthwick. There's a number of about 10 or 12 names that tried to take over from Sir Andrew Strauss. And when they were 25, they were out of Test cricket. All of a sudden, now they're 28, 29, and Milan's a little bit older as well and showed in one-day cricket what he's got. Sometimes you're a better player when you're a little bit older because you've gone through the ups and downs and the roller coaster of county cricket, the days where you haven't had a good day, days where you feel good and you try and really get your whole game in order. And the biggest example I look is Conway from New Zealand. Had to wait a long time, 100 first-class matches, got double 100 on his debut. All of a sudden, New Zealand have found an opening batter, possibly only for 3 or 4 years, but at least have found one that knows their all-round game and not have to go through 13 opening batting partners with Sir Alistair Cook when Sir Andrew Strauss retired. And I think the point that you make, if Milan keeps scoring runs, then why not? Why not bring the guy back? Because he's experienced, knows his game. England might just need that. That's why they possibly keep going back to Johnny Bairstow.
Tulip Carr says Joe Root is a victim of Owen Morgan and nothing else, and that's a subject that you've actually covered on the Following On podcast over the last few months, but also on yesterday's show. Yeah,
a little dig a bit blaming pictures there. I seen that, Tulip. I seen that little question digging the pitch from India. The pitch was poor. I'll stand by the fact that there's a couple of pitches in India that weren't great, but you're spot on. Joe Root is a victim of Owen Morgan and the white ball success. I think Joe Root could possibly have put himself first. Said 2-3 years ago, Joe Root would be a fantastic player for a franchise in the IPL, a fantastic player. And all you've got to look at is who's been successful. And you look at Kane Williamson, and I look at Joe Root to be a similar type of player to Kane Williamson at the Sunrisers. He just holds that group together. Joe's a fantastic 2020 player, and he put his Test career, England captain, and a little bit of break, but also trying to get the test team right away from the white ball stuff. I think Joe's going to start looking to put himself first now, because if the ECB aren't going to help him, I think Joe's got to look after himself.
Okay, last question. This is from Noreen. And Noreen says, after 2011, India hasn't performed well in England, South Africa, and in New Zealand. Like England, we see India not playing against their county teams for practice, and white ball cricket has crept into the game. What should be done for teams like India and for some players in England to improve their technique? And how should Test cricket be improved with the ICC seemingly putting way more emphasis on white ball cricket than red ball?
Well, Narain, the problem you've got is white ball cricket basically holds the global game together. All these emerging nations and all the cricket around the world and the world game, it's not just be played by 10 international teams. It's played all around the world with some, in even some of the smallest countries in the world. And the money feeds through from the IPL, which is it's a huge distributor, into the ICC, and then it feeds down and all that way that goes with that. So you've got to be careful on kicking the white ball game. We need the white ball game. When it comes to the red ball game, finding ways of playing for our players. I look at England now going into India series. Now, there's 100 round the corner, and there's one or two England players in this test team have got 100 contracts. At the same time, there's 3 rounds of county championship matches. It would take a brave player to turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to put my test career, I'm going to go and get 150 on a good pitch in July, down at the Oval, down at Sussex or wherever, one of the outgrounds that are playing, rather than go and play in the 100. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. And that, for me, if I was Joe Root, I'd be asking my selectors and my management team for my top 6, not so much himself, but because he's games in order, but definitely Burns, definitely Sibley, definitely Crawley, to go and play county cricket in them 3 Bob Willis Trophy games while the 100's on to get ready for India. Learn how to bat for 6 hours. Learn how to leave the ball. Learn how to build an innings. Learn how to get to 50, 75, 100. Take your hat off. Say well done. Go and do it and get 125, 150. Because that's what for me, that's what needs to happen. Never, ever going to happen. On the flip side, when you're talking about India and preparation and playing county teams, here's one for you. I look at the emerging nation, and now one of the new test teams is Ireland. I personally think instead of playing county cricket in England against county sides and playing just second team bowling attacks, that when you come to England to play 3 test matches, 4 test matches, 5 test matches, you go straight to Ireland and you play 2 4-day test matches against Ireland. It makes Ireland stronger. It makes the game of cricket in Ireland a lot stronger. And you could do that with the likes of the UAE, Afghanistan, when you go into India or Pakistan and you come into Abu Dhabi and Dubai. I think to get the emerging nations up that way and get a bigger pool of players playing, a group of playing test match cricket, I think we should be helping these countries. And instead of going to county cricket, where there's a lot of volume on now with the 100, the Blast, the 50 over competition, 4-10, the Bob Willis Trophy, India go to Ireland. They play 2 games at Malahide or Belfast. Against Ireland for 4 days. They leave Ireland, have a couple of Guinnesses, leave Ireland, nice food, come to England, play 5 test matches against England. Everybody's a winner then. Ireland get the game going to them. India see a different part of the world. The global game is getting bigger and stronger. And it just makes the game better. So that would be my suggestion on where preparation should go for teams coming into the Northern Hemisphere, because at the minute there's only 2. I think there's only 2 Northern Hemisphere teams. Is that right, John? And that's test status. That's England and Ireland. So why don't they use them?
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, it's a good idea. Not sure many of the Indian team will be taking up the offer of Guinness, but the food is good. Harmy, brilliant stuff as ever. Harmy will be back on Wednesday, hopefully, with a big interview that he did with Ross Taylor, New Zealand's Ross Taylor. And then 7 for 12 will return following day 1 at the Ageas Bowl, the World Test Championship Final. The ultimate test is how it's being promoted in these parts, and we will be following all the action there. So please, if you've got this far, like, subscribe, review, and leave your questions. We will answer them. But for now, that's it for 7 for 12.